Hi friends, we're going to continue working on fractions. Today, we're going to talk about comparing fractions. But before we compare fractions, let's do a little warm-up. Let's look at this baguette. It's a whole baguette. It's one baguette. And that line is saying it's broken into two parts. So in this whole baguette, there are two of two parts. Let's look at this whole baguette. It's one whole baguette. It's broken into three equal parts. A whole baguette would be three of three pieces. You know it. It's a one whole baguette. And we know this baguette is broken into four equal pieces. 4 out of 4 pieces would equal a whole baguette. All right, let's do a warm-up. On your piece of paper, I want you to write out the fractions for each of these watermelons. Wonderful. So we can see this used to be a whole slice of watermelon. What we have left is 1 out of 2 pieces. If we look at the next watermelon, it used to be a whole slice. What we have left of the whole is 1 out of 3 pieces. If we look at the next watermelon, you guessed it, we have 1 part out of the 4 equal parts left. And again, this watermelon, we have 2 of the equal parts of the watermelon left. 2 of 3. Great job, friends. We also have to be able to read and write fractional parts. So how you would write, let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. How you could write 1/2 is basically how it sounds. You can write 1/2. How would you write this? 1/3. And how would you write that? Yep, you guessed it. 1/4. But there's also another way to write it. You can write it as 1/4. Great. How would you write this one? Just how it sounds. 2/3. Wonderful job. Now I want to add some math vocabulary to this. If we look at the fraction 1/2, we know the 1 is the part of the watermelon we still have, and 2 represents all of the parts. But they have some fancier math words. We call the number on the top the numerator, and the number on the bottom the denominator. Now we're going to compare fractions. Miles eats blank of a sandwich. This is Miles's sandwich. This is what Miles is going to eat. What fraction of the sandwich is Miles going to eat? You're right. He is going to eat one of 2 pieces. So we would say 1/2 of the sandwich. This is the numerator. This is the denominator. So Miles eats 1/2 of a sandwich. Chase eats blank of the same sandwich. So these are both foot-long sandwiches. So we have to compare sandwiches that are the same. Because if Miles had half of a 3-foot-long sandwich, it would not be equivalent to Chase's. So it's the same sandwich. It's the same length. So let's look here. He's going to eat this much of his sandwich. How many pieces would that be? You're right. It would be one of 4 pieces. So Chase eats 1/4 of the same sandwich. Who eats more? We're comparing this sandwich to this. So who eats more? Miles eats the most of his sandwich. It's always good to write an answer statement, I feel. Oh, this looks like a good one. Yummy chocolate. Peyton eats blank of a chocolate bar. This is a whole chocolate bar. Peyton is only going to eat this much of her chocolate bar. So if she's eating this part, what would the fraction be of her chocolate bar? You are right. She's eating 1 of 4 pieces. So she's eating 1/4 of her chocolate bar. That's going in her tummy. Now Avery eats this amount of the same chocolate bar. What's the fraction of the chocolate bar that Avery eats? You're right. It's 1 of 3 pieces. So Avery eats 1/3 of the same chocolate bar. We know this is our numerator. This is our denominator. Who ate less? I should have put who eats less. Let's cross that out. Who eats less? This one could be tricky. So what you have to think about is this whole chocolate bar was cut into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal pieces. So there are more equal pieces than this chocolate bar. This chocolate bar was cut into 1, 2, 3 equal pieces. So there are less pieces. But that's where it gets a little tricky. Because there are less pieces in this chocolate bar, it means there's more chocolate in each piece. Do you get it? Think about it. This chocolate bar was broken into 4 pieces, almost to if you were sharing among 4 friends. There would be less chocolate than if you were sharing among 3 friends. So when there are less pieces, it means there's more chocolate in each piece. So, which one of these pieces, who eats less? Well, Peyton had 1 of 4 pieces. So her piece is less than 1 of 3 pieces. Well done. Don't worry, this is a new concept, and you will be practicing in IXL, so you'll have lots of opportunities to play around and to think about greater than and less than when it comes to fractions. So now we're going to order fractions. So let's look at the first sandwich. Let's think about what you're seeing. I see 2. I see 2 of what used to be 4 pieces. So this is 2/4 of a whole sandwich. Let's look at the second sandwich. What do you see? I see 1 equal part of what used to be 3 equal parts. So I see 1/3 of a whole sandwich. Let's look at the last sandwich. I see 1 equal part again, but it's 1 equal part of all the parts, and that was 4. So I see 1 of 4 pieces. So if you were going to put fractions in order, maybe we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. Let's look here. Which fraction is the least? Point to it on your screen. You're right. This one is the least. Actually, let's see. I might have to move this over a little bit. You're right. That one is the least. Now, let's look at the 2 sandwiches that are left. We have 1/3 and 2/4, which looks like it's more, which looks like the greatest. You're right. 2/4 is greater than 1/4. And what would be in the middle? You're right. 1/3. So we just put these sandwiches in order from least to greatest. Let's order fractions again, but let's go this time from greatest to least. So let's look at these fractions. What do you notice here? What would you write? Did you write 2 of 3 pieces? This is 2/3 of a slice of watermelon. This is 1 whole piece of a watermelon. And this is 2, hold on, this is 2 of 5 pieces. So this is 2/5 of a slice. So which one of these is greatest? You're right, this one is greatest. So let's compare what we have remaining. We have 2/3 and we have 2/5. So we have 2/3 and 2/5. Of what's remaining, which one of these is the greatest? You're right. This is the greatest. which would mean this 2/5 is the least. So we ordered fractions from greatest to least in this slide and least to greatest in the other slide. So this here is 1 whole pizza, and this is also 1 whole pizza. This is half of a whole, and this is also half of a whole. Now, if you really like pizza, which half would you want? You're right. You would want this half because this half is larger than this half. Throughout this whole slide, we kept talking about the same sandwich. And we kept talking about the same slice of watermelon. And we kept talking about the same candy bar. It's important when you're doing fractions that the units are the same. So, if you notice, both pizzas are a whole pizza. This just happens to be a larger whole pizza, and this just happens to be a smaller whole pizza. So, let's do a little self-check. We've been learning an awful lot about fractions, and I want you to ask yourself, do you know how to show equal parts using squares, rectangles, and circles? If it's a yes, great job. If it's a no, you can always go back and practice some of the IXL assignments you've been given before. The second self-check is, do you know how to show a half, a fourth, a third of a shape? You can practice doing that too. And do you know how to write a fraction in words and symbols? So today your must-do is going to be comparing fractions. Remember, this here, if you click it in IXL, it will read you the problem. Which fraction is less? So we're comparing 2/3 to 1/3. 1/3 is less, so we would click 1/3 and hit submit. You've done a wonderful job today comparing fractions and ordering fractions. Well done.